Oh, yes, y'all, welcome to another real chunk of Wisely into the Wild. And I'm your host, Ras Ariel Tafara, here speaking, welcoming you all. And this is Wisely into the Wild. Yes, it sure is. So, first of all, how do we safely operate through this wilderness and access the maximum amount of divine providence in order to prosper beyond what we thought was possible before and actually live what the Almighty miraculously and bountifully provides and get the full maximum and even live our full divine calling and potential? That is where it's at, folks. And part of the way that this is achieved is you must, in fact, navigate the cycles of life accurately and successfully. And so the first thing you have to actually determine is, what is your actual current position within the cycles of life right now? Because everything that's happening, it's all happening according to a perfect system, and this system is life and the cyclical nature of life. It is quite simply that. Knowing this, you have the ability to achieve truly great things. There is a potential for, miracles and disasters. We'll focus on the miracles for now. And essentially, right at this very moment, right, we have to check and see, okay, so it's 7:05 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, evening, 2025, April 3rd. We have a relatively new moon. Okay, we're going to start with the daily period that we're in. It's a daily period of C. Okay, then we've got I think we're actually in a neutral lunar unit, because since 6:13 p.m. today, the tide has been rising again after having emptied out at 6:13 p.m. about an hour ago. So it's on the rise again, yet it's in the first 3-hour stage of, it just is starting to rise now. So it's in, if I'm correct, that's a negative. It's still a negative state. No, it's increasing. What the heck is that? Okay, in any case, we're probably in a neutral lunar unit right now, because the tide, like I said, it emptied out an hour ago. Since it emptied out, it's been increasing, it's slowly rising now since 1 hour. And now that is actually a negative unit, though. So that equates a negative unit during a 3.5 day positive lunar unit. As you can see the moon above me here, we had a new moon. Boink. No, I'm not touching it. Don't interfere with the clockwork. Okay, don't bump those things around too much. Praise the Lord. It's like a clock, you're looking at that's like a dial on a clock right there. And it's showing you, I'm going to get into that in a second, because my theories and observations, scientific discoveries have been verified time and time again. So, that's right, we have a rising tide since an hour. We're in a 3.5 day positive long lunar unit since the 29th. That was about, a couple of days ago. Yeah, right, okay. So we're in a neutral lunar unit. We're in a neutral time frame here. Neutral. Not inherently negative, not inherently positive. Neutral. Very interesting. Very balanced vibes right now. That's in terms of the lunar units that we're in right now. As I am observing them in real time, like I said, based on a tide chart, it's the nearest maritime location, and then, how much time, how many days have passed since the new moon? 3.5 days after a new moon, you got a positive short lunar unit. We're in that right now. So we're in a neutral lunar unit right now for like another 2 hours and like 10 minutes, something like that. Then it becomes positive, and then we got a double positive. Now this double positive that's coming up, it's like you got to use those windows of opportunity. Okay, then of course, right, so we have the daily period, the short and the long lunar unit identified. Then we got the annual life cycle period that we're in. Then the simple overall period of human life. We know our soul personality. Pretty much got a total overview of what is actually going on systematically, what cycles of life we're in, and now knowing that, we can identify what actions to take in order to accomplish, let's say, the highest and the best good things possible based on the time it is for certain things. And this is all in the description of the life cycles. It's all in a book, Self-Mastery and Fate with the Cycles of Life by H. Spencer Lewis. Get a copy of this, okay? Now that I know this, as you may notice, dear viewers, as I go through this, it's sort of like you're seeing me navigating, going through navigational procedures, basic safety procedures actually. And while I'm sort of automatically prone to turn this into an educational thing, as I almost always do, you're actually seeing a real situation where somebody actually has to navigate accurately in order to achieve certain legitimate life goals and objectives and accomplish certain things that are necessary, like financial wealth increase, health maintenance, all these types of things. So you can learn from this. That having been said, what you really have to aim for is the best possible windows of opportunity being identified by yourself through accurate navigation. And I've just done that. I've established the fact that in about like 2 hours, was it? So 6. Oh, yeah. From 12:18. So from 9:18 p.m. to 12:18 p.m. tonight, we actually have a double positive unit, and that has to be utilized. I'm trying to figure out how the heck, what more can I accomplish today to secure as much providence, as possible for the time being in the near future. So what you're looking at is we have something important on the horizon. Like the navigator here is at the drawing board and has looked at the map and seen, okay, here's where we are. I know my actual position in the cycles of life, and I also know that there's a very, very opportune window coming up. There's a window of opportunity on the horizon in about 2 hours. And it basically, like I said, it goes from 9:18 to 12:18 a.m. So 9:18 p.m. tonight till 12:18. Now, if you were to, so then what you do is you've identified the time frame where this particular window of opportunity exists. This window of opportunity is essentially, it's a cycle of time. It's a certain amount of time that is can be explained as follows. It's a time frame where you have the short lunar cycle with the tides. That's every So there's like basically a 12-hour rhythm to this. You've got the short lunar cycle of the tides and the long one of 3.5 days. Now, the short lunar cycle of the tides is like basically from 6:13 p.m. the tide emptied out. It emptied out at 6:13. It's going to be full again. It's rising right now, and it's going to be full again at 12:18 a.m. So just about every 6 hours, you have the tide either high or low, right? Just check the charts for wherever you're operating. So we know that 3 hours before a high tide, we have a positive short lunar unit because everything is at a state of increase. Things are peaking. And what is this peaking and what are these things? Well, what it is that, see, the short lunar cycle, in other words, the effect that the energy and force exerted by the moon that has an effect on Earth, human life activity, that makes itself visible as the tides, for example, we can identify what state this energy is in. And what this energy is, let me quickly explain what I'm talking about. The energy, right? What is the energy? Well, the energy is simply the life energy and that what permeates the universe, that is all sort of alive and an energetically living thing, right? Including us, including what makes the water rush down these rivers and everything, what makes the wind blow. It's all moving. The entire universe is somehow powered by this main source of energy. And this main source of energy, praise the Lord. This main source of energy goes through different states. They're all totally systematic and cyclical. So what that is if you've got the lunar units, long ones of 3.5 days and short ones that manifest in either a high or low tide, etc., right? And based on what's going on with these, you can see what's going on in the universe, what state the energy in the universe basically is in, whether it's in a double negative, a neutral, positive, or a double positive state. This is almost like, okay, if the universe itself here that we're in and the operating system and the power that drives this operating system of the entire universe, the heavens, the earth, the sun rising in the east every day, setting in the west, going to rest, getting up, breathing, living, everything, the four seasons, all of life operates cyclically and systematically perfectly. And the system itself, it can be looked into, and the driving force that is from God, or the energy of God, basically, the driving force, it's actually more like a clockwork. It's like the Creator put this clockwork in place, and part of the clockwork is that right there, the moon, and like the heavenly bodies, they run their course, and they're so that we can identify times that are important, right? And so what you get is you have different times and different qualities of energy present at different times. So the moon, the lunar units of the moon they actually show to us what state the energy in the universe is in right now, whether it's in a negative, energetically feminine and resting mode, or neutral, or a positive, energetically masculine, increasing and building mode. This is highly important to pay attention to, because based on what the lunar units are, and whether it's, for example, so it's always going to be at minimum about a 3-hour window where you have half of the 6 hours from low to high tide, for example. There's these 2-3 hour windows. When the tide empties out and it starts to increase again, from empty point of tide till 3 hours, still negative. Then after 3 more hours, so after 3 hours, it's positive again for 3 hours, and then it reaches its high tide point, and then that's the culmination of the positive short lunar unit. And then it empties out again for 3 hours, and then again, then it increases again, and so on. It's just always alternating between negative and positive, and then the long one is going from negative to positive, and then the combination of the two create mixtures of negative and positive and the results thereof. If you pay attention to the lunar units, see, the interesting thing is that the lunar units and the state that the lunar units are in, either, the combination of negative and positive, and the resulting either positive or negative overall states for certain time frames, like for 3 hours, basically. There'll be a double negative for 3 hours, and there'll be a negative. Or, well, it's always a mixture. Check the exact details in the book, but generally, things are either in a double negative, a negative, or a neutral, or a positive, or a double positive state. Now, when things are in a double positive state, or even in a positive state, really, you have great opportunities and very high amounts of providence that is available through Earth and human life activity. So this alternation between negative and positive that the lunar units, whether short or long, go through is a highly, highly valuable source of information, because here's why. Because, see, human interactions and human life has a lot of key turnpikes and pivotal decisive moments that basically have to do with yes or no, plus or minus, right? Accomplishing or not accomplishing, positive results or negative results. And these results are directly governed by the lunar units, whether it's going to be a positive result or a negative result. This is all governed by the lunar units, whether they're positive or negative. This fact alone, my dear viewers, is so simple and yet totally and extremely powerful. If you know this, what I'm going to explain to you is, if you know this now, that either positive or negative results, for example, of human activity or projects that you set out to accomplish, or goals and objectives that you seek to accomplish, positive or negative results are actually in part determined over time based on how much time it takes for the particular thing or the objective theoretically to be achieved, based on the various different factors, how many people you have to talk to, how many moves you have to make, etc., by the either positive or negative states that the universe is in, as identifiable per the lunar units that show themselves in the high and low tides and the 3.5 day positive or negative long lunar units. So you can already actually predict the results of a certain action that you take in life based on the time that you take it in. You can predict the reaction if you pay attention to the lunar cycle, the lunar units as you go, because they are showing you in real time what state and what nature is, what state and what type of a polarity basically the world around us is in. And this has an effect on human and earth and life activity. And so if you pay attention to this, you become very successful and very accurate at basically accomplishing things that seem somewhat perhaps astonishing to some because they seem rather miraculous in terms of being able to sort of actually sort of benefit all the time at any given place, at any given point in time. You're always basically benefiting, and this gives you the ability to circumnavigate and overcome, actually like walk over the top of, or actually remain completely safe from any obstacles in life if you pay enough detailed attention and you map out things and you navigate right. I'm telling you that the obstacles in life that lead to any type of problem or difficulty whatsoever, whether in business or personal life, these things are of a negative condition. And there's times when there are negative conditions existing, and there are times when there are positive conditions existing. Once again, as indicated by the lunar units, both long and short combined with each other, resulting in a certain state. You can see what's going on and what's going to happen if and when, right? So knowing this now, it's actually a really great fact, because do you actually realize just how far this goes? I'm telling you that anywhere on this earth plane, anywhere on earth, right? If you pay attention, you're watchful, you pay attention to the cycles of life, you navigate them using even a sheet of paper and a pencil and a calendar, a tide chart, and then the book, Self-Mastery and Fate with the Cycles of Life, right? And the information about the different life cycles ranging from the daily period of 3 hours, 25 minutes, all the way up through the short, long lunar units, the annual life cycle period, the simple overall period, like the 7 years cycle you're in, right? Then your soul personality, your overall soul personality, you can start to make decisions that will be absolutely the best decisions and the safest and the wisest, the most successful decisions that you can make. And that equates absolute safety. Even in times like today, you can have absolute safety, and that is a great form of divine providence and even protection. If you think about it, praise the Lord, because with wisdom, right? Because this is essentially all within the category of wisdom. So highly valuable, and it's free. Do you realize that? You know, to actually know, first of all, like I've said before, you can see the future ahead of time, potentially, based on knowing what cycles of life you're in and what ones are upcoming. Yet, what's more important and what you actually really have is the ability to actually determine your future and to master your destiny. And now we reach the subject of self-mastery and mastering your destiny. And this is a very important thing. This is a very, very valuable and arguably the most important and most divinely self-empowering and important and useful discipline that a human being can practice is self-mastery. And it just simply is by practically applying wisdom in your life, operating scientifically, and, you know, it's free. So just to show you again for a second how far this goes, right? So based on the lunar units, right? Okay, I know that for example, let's say I seek to accomplish a certain legitimate thing in life. Okay, there's a 3 hour, 25 minute window. That's a daily period that we're in right now. And there's 7 of those a day, and 7 days makes us strong, right? Okay, then there's a short lunar cycle of approximately 12 hours, basically, from low to high, from high to low, right? So from low to high, it's about 6. Okay, you've got then the long lunar units of 3.5 days. And even by simply, and this is probably the most key and important, one of the most important life cycles to pay attention to that you're in at any given point in time is the lunar units. Because, see, like I said, they show you when things are in either a negative or a positive condition for a certain amount of time, wherein in these time frames you can accomplish things with positive results or negative results. That's actually what it boils up to. Now, knowing this, did you know that with this information, see, if you pay attention to this, you're watchful, you can achieve things that are simply miraculous, and that are actually above and powered by a superior resource that is above anything the world can produce in terms of financial or material wealth, and that is superior to that. So, like, even wealth acquisition is governed by this system. So the thing is that it's like you have an eternal source of security, and pretty much the best of the best life in general. Okay. Now, what makes this easier, this process is simplified, like I said, by navigating on paper. You have to actually have a notebook or some kind of marking system to, like, basically go and identify what's a 3.5 day positive lunar unit. Okay, we're in that right now since since Tuesday evening, right? Till about like Saturday AM, okay? So I've got that on the radar. I have my calendar, and in my calendar it tells me, because I've mapped it out, what lunar cycle it is for the next 3 days. It's positive, okay. So then I got the tide chart. The tide chart shows me at the nearest place where there's a tidometer at the ocean that is like able to measure basically the negative or the positive short lunar units that manifest themselves visibly as tides, either high or low, basically. I can see, I've got, for the next 3 days, I've got a positive space to work in, and then for the next 3 hours, it's neutral, and then after 3 hours, it's going to be positive again, and that goes on for 3 hours, and then for the next, so day by day, every couple of hours or minutes, actually, check the cycles of life that you're in, and then operate effectively accordingly. And you will maximize your health and wealth, and everything will be good. And I have done this. I have done this at times when most humans would probably have perhaps panicked, to say it sort of the way that it would make sense. And instead, what I did was I sat down, I mapped out the life cycles I was in, I identified the positive aspects or positive, so I identified there's always basically either positive or negative, almost like assets available in life in different time frames. There's either things where it's propitious, or there isn't, or they're not propitious. And you have to identify what is propitious. And then when you do that, you aim to achieve what is propitious as it's described in the description of the life cycles that you're in, ranging from a daily period of 3 hours, 25 minutes to, for the next 3 hours, and then again for the next, like, you get the picture here. You have an overview, total overview of what is possible and the best things that are possible. And then simply make these things happen by acting on the right guidance, seek to accomplish, and then accomplish whatever is propitious within certain time frames, and it works. It all works. It's because you're operating, living in harmony with the cycles of life. You're seeking to achieve the right things at the right times. You're seeking to achieve things, wherefore it is a time for them to be achieved, so they will be achieved. Because it was the right time for that to happen, and you sought to make it happen, and so it was made happen. It sort of works that way. The reason is because you're operating in harmony with a certain system rather than against the current. It's actually how this works. Now, one might think, oh, this is strict. No, it does not limit you in any way whatsoever. What it does, though, knowing this, it actually, now I get what my earthly father was saying once to me. See, wisdom is actually a good thing. The more wisdom you have, the better your life is. But see, here's the thing, though. You actually have to force yourself to be basically wisely productive at certain times when you know that it is the time for the particular thing to be produced that you have to acquire to prosper. Because you know that, look, you're at the helm, and if you don't do it, then it will not happen. And so you have to be honest with yourself. It's like, you know that, okay, at this time, I can accomplish this particular thing, and this will make my life better, because I know that this is the space and the time frame for this. I have to access this while it's available. And if you do that, you prosper. And if you don't, then you're also still always mastering your destiny, yet you must, in fact, master it in a good way. So what I'm saying is that passiveness, unnecessary passiveness, or it's not good, because see, like, okay, quick point of information and like a word of comfort too is that, for example, there are times when, right, you feel, your body physically feels, your psyche, your body, it feels and it senses that it just has to rest. Okay. And it's not you being lazy. It's not anything like that. It's not procrastination or anything like that. It is a natural instinct. You realize, you feel heavy and tired. Well, you check the tide cycle, and you see, wow, wait a minute, right now the tide is emptying out. It's a negative unit. So, like, there's a time when you're going to feel lazy, and it's going to be natural, and it's going to be okay, and it has its time, and you just go and take a nap then. It's what I did just now. For the last, 40 minutes ago, I took a nap for 1 hour because I felt really tired. And I checked the tides, and the tide was just going to empty out in 1 hour, reaching its lowest point. And during that last hour, before it reached its lowest point, I was taking a nap and I was really resting. And I woke up right after it emptied out and started to increase again. Now, why is this so important? Because, listen, if you can coordinate your entire life's movements in harmony with the cycles of life, in harmony with the negative or the positive units that exist, guess what? Your efficiency level has been increased to the maximum, basically almost to the maximum amount that any human can be efficient, because you're going with the current and you're not fighting against the current. So it's like, look, there's a time when you will feel automatically energetic and self-propelled to accomplish things. It will not seem like a challenge to you to write this document, go over here, put this there, and like make this journey from A to B, the next thing, and at other times it will feel, I just feel like I'm going to bed. So here's the thing. This has reasons. There are reasons why you are able to accomplish things at certain times and you aren't at other times. This is all governed by the cycles of life and the negative and the positive units that exist. And if you have these on your radar, you look at them, you identify the ones you're in, and you see what ones are upcoming. You utilize the right ones, the right negative or positive units, then guess what? you're operating as efficiently as a human possibly can, because you are going with the automatic, perfect, cyclical nature and the rhythm of life. It's absolutely perfect. You cannot be more effective than that, because, like I said, let's say you're trying to accomplish something that's, it's an important thing. You have to write an application, and this piece of paper has to be truthful. It has to be a powerful statement, and it has to be interesting and include the necessary information so that they then call you in order to, interview and potentially hire you for whatever legit employment it is. So there's a time when you can write that application really easily and really good. That's the time when you write it. And then you have it. And then you send it at the right time. It pops up in their inbox at the right time. Then they call you because that application, that cover letter was, wow, that was really impressive. Okay, so this is how you do this type of stuff. Because there's other times when you try to write something and it just doesn't work. So then you leave it. You leave it be. And you pay attention and you readjust your trajectory. Check the life cycles you're in. Again, make sure you know what ones you're in and you know what time it really is. For example, my friends, the winter time, that's the accurate reading of time. The so-called summertime, when they set the clocks forward on the 30th of March in the Western world, that's a false reading of time that's being established. They're establishing an artificial condition. So you always have to use the winter time for the basic daytime that it is. Always use the winter time. Even if their clocks are set forward by an hour, you subtract an hour so you have the real reading of time that it is. It's always the winter time. Okay? Starts with that. And then there's some key important details here that can maximize the efficiency and the overall success of your operation, of your life, folks. And that is, you have to identify, I still have to do that. Wow. You have to know exactly, preferably, your birthday. Day, minute, so month, day, year, hour, minute. Preferably. The more accurate all this information is, the more accurate we have. So the more accurate information we have about the exact day of our birthday, the exact day, hour, right? Even the daily period, for example, yeah? And then other things that are important too. You have an annual life cycle period, folks. It always starts on your birthday and it ends just before your birthday and it restarts on your birthday. So for 365 days a year, starting on your birthday, you have 7 annual life cycle periods of each 52 days, right? 52 days each. Okay. So now it's important to know exactly what one of these cycles you're in, right? And here's the problem. Let's say you were born 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 20, 30, 40, or more years ago. There have been leap years since then. And what has happened is the original time of the year, within how time steadily, linearly, and systematically progresses, the exact time when you were born, your birthday, will start to be reading late on the calendar this year, for example, based on how many leap years it has been since you were born, because a day has essentially been added to the calendar on the leap year, and so the original date of your birthday has been basically bumped to the left one, and then it reads later than it is. So this is a very important point, because the problem can arise that after so and so many years of age, based on how many leap years there have been since your original birthday, during the current year, when you think it's your birthday, when it shows that it's your birthday on your calendar this year, it can actually be a certain amount of days late based on how many ever leap years there were since you were born. And so this is problematic for the following reasons. This is a serious one to pay attention to. It can be fixed. There's a way to fix this. I've done it myself. Is that essentially the reason why this is problematic is because, for example, your annual life cycle period, number 1, where everything is for you, all the support in the universe is for you. This starts on your birthday itself, and then it takes, remember, these 52-day cycles, at the end of one, it takes a day. It takes a day before the end of a 52-day cycle, then a day when the new one begins, and a day after for these to for one cycle to end and the other one to be fully established. You have to leave some room for the cycles to one cycle to end and actually the next one to fully become established, right? So if your birthday is on the 1st of June 2016 or whatever, or 1950 something, I don't know, then this year, how many years, like 50 years, 70 years later, or 10 years later, based on how many ever leap years there have been since your birthday, and what year it is now, and how many leap years there have been since your birthday, the reading of your birthday this year is going to be so and so many days late. Indicated it's going to read on the calendar this year later than it actually is. And the reason why that's problematic is because we're looking at 52-day time frames, the first one of those starting on your birthday and going for 52 days. And that's your first annual life cycle period. You have to know when this starts. You have to know the day that your annual life cycle period actually starts, because these are definite time frames of 52 days, 7 of them a year, making 365 days approximately, right? It's important to know the exact actual real time of your birthday every year, because if you don't, then you could be late. It could be indicated, or it could appear to be later than it actually is. And what that would do is you would be getting an inaccurate reading of your actual position within the cycles of life. Now, I've corrected this myself and figured out that since I was born 1988, basically about 10 leap years have occurred. And so when last year, for example, in September, when it said my birthday was on, this date, I had to actually deduct 10 days for these 10 leap years since I had my birthday when I was first born. And what happened was, actually, it was my birthday. In reality, it was 10 days earlier than it was indicated being on the calendar this year in 2020, last year, 2024. And now this year, I think it's either the same or... So 10 days plus minus makes a huge difference, because you've got 52-day windows. And if I have 52 days to take care of business and to prosper, then that's different than having 42 days. Okay. And then, imagine how so you have to actually maintain as accurate a reading of time and have accurate, real-time, truthful data about your life cycles, and primarily based on, and most actually all based on, your birthday. So it's like every couple of years, every year we got to double check and make sure that this is really our birthday and that things haven't been jiggled by the leap years. Because as I explained, you get the importance of this fact. Okay. Now, of course, these are details, yet they do make a difference. Like I said, 10 days makes a big difference in your life. 10 days plus minus, that's a huge amount of time wherein critical things can be accomplished or not accomplished, and it's most important to know exactly what time you are in, to really know exactly what life cycles you're in. Because if you know this, then you can fully, accurately see everything, and you have the maximum amount of operational capability in order to accomplish certain legitimate life's goals and objectives with an almost absolute certainty. Now, as I say all this, and it sounds like we can totally see the future and even totally determine our future, yes, of course, with God's help, though, what happens is that actually things tend to manifest gradually and steadily manifest, always a little bit better than we were able to make it happen ourselves. It's interesting. As much power as we have to use wisdom and to, navigate the cycles of life, use the opportune ones for whatever good things it is and so on, as much as we're able to determine our destiny, there is also an additional safeguard and a divine aid at work in our lives where things actually work better than we planned. So that's actually a highly reassuring and a comforting thing to know, and I have experienced this many times, folks. In other words, what happens is, no matter how wise and accurate you operate, there's still a divine assistance at work that somehow makes things work out even better. This has happened. I have had this happen before, thank God Almighty. So it's like you could be the most competent, wise magi and seer, seeing through everything in life, all the cycles you're in, knowing exactly what time it is, what you can accomplish at what times, what's going to happen, what you can make happen. Literally, like, you're at the helm of it all. Yet at the same time, there's still a higher guidance at work where some things actually, interestingly enough, that even look like a potential crisis, whether great or small, mostly tiny, so they actually lead to then something else happening that was actually much better. I'm going to give you an example of this. I had employment in an area of business that was very stressful. And there was a time of the year when I really shouldn't be in a type of employment that's stressful, especially not for a certain annual life cycle period where one needs more rest and relaxation than work that is stressful. What happened was the employment, it basically came to an end right a couple of days after this period began where I actually needed to rest. And it looked like a disaster. I'm still maintaining victory over everything as much as possible and navigating it all because of the potential repercussions. Yet the thing is, what actually happened was something ended abruptly, yet actually it's good that ended because that was basically the best thing for my health at the time. So this is interesting. Now, I did not intend for that to go that way. Yet it happened, and now in retrospect, you see, actually that was better because who knows what else could have happened. So what happens is things that look like a crisis, one should be circumspect and know that, yes, there is the potential possibility at all times, actually, and specifically at certain times, and these times can be, known ahead of time just by looking at your annual life cycle. You can look at this and go, okay, I know that for the next 52 days, there is a potential possibility of this happening, and in order to avoid this, we must do this and not that. And it's that simple. Avoid arguments, because they can go south real quick. For 52 days, there's a time when arguments, it's like the third life cycle period. Arguments can result in just more arguments and not things like that. So, okay, avoid it. Minimize speech at that time. So it's like any obstacle that's out there, there's a time when it's out there. You can see the time when it's there, and this pertains to everything, because every year, same thing. Annual life cycle period. 365 days, starting on your birthday, 7 units of 52 days. And at any given point, you're in one of those. And in any given one of those, there's basically positive possibilities and negative possibilities. Or like you have two things on the menu of life at that time. You have this is on the menu and this is on the menu. And you have to, it's like there's always, it's almost like you could say that having an overview of the cycles of life and a good understanding of them, it's like you actually have a map of what is potentially available and what is sort of systematically being provided for different time frames. Because providence is always working, and at different times, divine providence is providing certain packages of providence. So you see, okay, this is the time for this, aim for this, and you get it, and you got it. Versus, see, it's like you'd have to be ignorant not to pay attention to what is perpetuous and work for what's perpetuous. You know, it's just simple. You know, based on the description of the life cycle periods, what you should be doing with your life at that time. And if you do it, what happens is the results are even better than you expected. And that's actually a fact. I've been doing this, and it works very good. In fact, it works so good that, like I said, sometimes it could be a little bit overwhelming because it seems very wild, yet it's all divinely guided. So it has been a truthful report here on Wisely Into the Wild. Hashtag R&R show, researching and revealing wisdom